Flam, Lightning Dust, True Love by Switched Up. Sometime after that, Lightning Dust have left the washouts, and after the group has been disbanded and the other members walked on their own ways, Lightning Dust went back home to Cloudsdale to stay with her family for a short time. But her family had her to make an option to fake to make a work, start to make a living for herself, because she can't live at home forever. And Lightning Dust felt she was not even ready for it yet, but her parents gave her ultimatum: if you don't get if you don't find a work within next 2 months, we all know that we won't have any much afraid that we can't support you anymore. Since we don't have much, since your mother doesn't work anymore, that makes us less money for us to even just for us. So you have to find out your own place to live. Lightning Dust wasn't even ready for find a way to work yet. But since her father told her that it was only way to figure out her to make her living, so she started looking around in Cloudsdale for any available work. There were a few works at the weather factory, but she didn't feel that was not something for her. She was more excited. She was more excitement. She was more into speed. But at the factory, you had to be carefully, which she wasn't impatient for. So she quit that job after only about 2 days. Even that she got only paid for maybe 20 bits for only the 2 days, that was not enough. But her parents were not still giving up hope to find her that she could find a suitable work. After she tried the bakery, nothing. She tried even a coaching for sports, but the school there was, or the organization thought that she was too extreme within sports, so they had to let her go. They didn't. They thought that she was a good athlete, but that her methods in sports was far too extreme for the young students and even to get hell of it. She started looking around in Cloudsdale, but most places were otherwise already had been taken, or they were only not that she wouldn't fit in. She tried a few other applications and magazines and newspapers, but most of them were not only taken. But the only one that she could fit in was actually to live with the newspaper in the mornings. And since that was the only type of work that she could do in instant, she applied for the work and she was accepted. And for the past 2-3 weeks after she started, she actually made a great deal of living, but even she still lived at her parents for only time. But she told her parents that she was going to looking for a small place of her own within the next a week or so. But that her dreams then fell apart. Just the same week when she started looking for a small place at her own in Cloudsdale, it turns out most of the newspaper owners had delivering some complaints to the magazine that they have often received to have to pick up their newspaper either on the roof or have to go to the ground to find it, because Lightning Dust didn't seem to spend any much in stay for a moment. She stayed only for a second and threw the newspaper and flew further away. She didn't stay for at least less than a minute to find out so that the newspaper arrived safely at the room, outside the door or in the mailbox. She just threw them, and so many customers of the newspaper had complained that they didn't receive their newspaper in the morning. Sometimes they come maybe for just 1 or 2 days, but some were only for almost 3 to 5 days. One customer complained to the owner of the newspaper that she hadn't received her newspaper for nearly a week. And that made the owner was very furious, but she gave Lightning Dust at least a second chance to make up for this, told her to slow down, make sure that when you reach the next house, stay to see if the newspaper actually lands either the door or in the mailbox. Just not to throw them for the next one at all. And of course, Lightning Dust don't like to be criticized by this, but she realized that was her only way to figure out some work. So she tried, and that actually worked out quite well. And with the next 2 months, she had actually found her own small place in central of the Clydesdale and had received many great comments from that her speed had improved over the next that she was actually have been getting so much only bad negative comments for complaints for the customers has someday stopped. Then what happens that one or two customers said that they had either couldn't find the newspaper because they had looked both at the door and the mailbox, but then it happened that they found it wrong. They often found that the newspaper either is under or behind the door. But the owner said that Lightning Dust has actually improved. And if she can make this even better with the next 2 months, she was thinking about maybe increase her payment from 30 to maybe 50 bits per day. That would make her even better than that. But unfortunately, then it came the day when the business had to get down some ponies to had to fire a number of people, ponies for the work, since the business was not getting so much well as they think. Lightning Dust, she was not in one of the risk to lose her work, because she had much delivered. The reason why many of those ponies had to leave because lack of the experience. Most of them were actually only interns, other than for only volunteer. But there were only about maybe 5 ponies that had to leave. But then there came a day when Lightning Dust had to make the next delivery. Because one day, Lightning Dust has been ordered by the director that she had to go to take a different path of her career. Instead of delivering the new morning newspapers, she was going to deliver a very important cargo to a client. She was going to deliver a package to one of the owners or the director's friends within the elite class in Canterlot. On her way there, everything seemed to be perfect until a flock of birds suddenly appeared, and she tried to avoid them tried to make a very fast maneuver. By doing so, she managed to drop the package from her carriage, and it fell to the ground. And she immediately tried to capture it, but she fell and fell to the ground. But she thought maybe that was what is inside the package wasn't damaged anything, so she picked it up and took it all the way to Canterlot to deliver it to the owner and to the receiver. But she was instructed by the director to stay there until the package has been opened and seems everything was okay with it. When the receiver opened the package, she was furious. She had ordered a glass set from Trottingham, and this was going to happen. She then immediately blamed Lightning Dust for this. But Lightning Dust tried to explain what happened, was that it was actually not only her fault, because there was this flock of birds. But every time she tried, but the customer or the receiver, she didn't want to listen. She said that she is going to inform the owner, her boss, what she happened to her package, and that she will make sure that Lightning Dust won't be able to work anymore. And now, Lightning Dust was very scared to lose her only work that she had been getting so long. But she tried to explain to the tuner, please don't, this is my only work for months. If I get fired, I won't be able to find any more job. That's what you had to think about it earlier, but you dropped it. But was it my fault? It was because of these birds. But the receiver didn't want to believe, wouldn't even listen. She managed to push out Lightning Dust out the door and locked. Just only that the same day, Lightning Dust returned to the office, trying to work when she was called into the office of the owner. Lightning Dust was very, very much unhappy what's going to happen. She knew what was going to happen, and even she tried to explain to the owner what happened. But the owner listened and thought about this. But even since Lightning Dust has had this bad past in the business, with the customers complaining before, and this was a very important client. She was actually one of those big charities, one of the big investors within this office of the magazine. Lightning Dust was trying to make sure that thought that she was going to be just getting a warning. But in fact, the owner said, since this accident, if it was also just one simple accident, I would understand. But this time, it is time to you to go. I'm sorry, Lightning Dust, but you can't stay here anymore. So you fired me after just one mistake? What kind of business are you running here? She asked. A very important business. We have no tolerance for any big mistakes, but you had made mistake once earlier as well because of the deliveries. But please, you can demote me or put me someone else. Like, I could carry you to some boxes or into deliveries, but not no one to deliver it. Please, give us something into business. I'm sorry, Lightning Dust, but I can't. That's a policy. Lightning Dust was very furious and but very upset. She didn't say any more words. She just left the door and flew home. Her parents was very surprised to see her home so early. Then she explained what happened, and both the parents was very surprised. But they saw the daughter was very upset and even honest what has happened, that she felt bad that she managed to go off this box. Even she tried to avoid this flock of birds. Only for the next couple of days, Lightning Dust didn't leave her room at all, until she saw a news or an article in the newspaper that the Flam brothers had opened a new restaurant or even a new casino or at least a resort in Las Vegas, and now we're looking for ponies for help. Lightning Dust thought this might be the last chance she has to find at least some decent work, because after this accident at the work she had previously, she tried to find any work with any kind of business, but so far none. All the other earlier available works was already taken or even was no longer require any help. So she told her parents that she's going to Las Vegas to see if there could be any kind of work there. But since she had an old family friend who works in Las Vegas, so she decided to at least go there for try to ask her family friend if he could help her, maybe to get some contact with the Flame brothers, at least get some work there, and any type of work that at least was some decent pay. And the friend actually were actually in contact with the Flame and Flam, and Flam was very heartbroken, or at least understood what she had gone through, and that he was actually allowing her to stay at their resort, but first as to take out the garbage. At first, she was very much not against that. She was very first against that simple idea to pick out, to going after trash. But he said if he should do that, he would pay her 60 bits per day, per hour. And she was going to work for at least 8 hours. But she made the math and she realized that was actually a decent pay for just for one day. So she decided, okay, I'll go for it. So for the next couple of weeks, she actually managed to continue her work, even though she hated it very much. The smells from the old food leftovers and other kinds of trash. She really hated work, but she wanted to make this a payment, so she continued and hold out. And after nearly 5 months at work, Flan saw her how much she had actually worked. All the treasures was taken out just before them, and even the day before they usually do it. So he talked to his brother to maybe promote her to maybe within, but they saw that she was very fast and they heard about her previous entering in the Wonderballs Academy and that she was in part of the washouts for a part for time there. So they decided maybe they could hire her in part some attractions. And sure enough, they found there was actually one attraction, a roller coaster, and she was the one who was going to be operating it. But she had no skill, no knowledge, no even experience. But luckily they had at least a couple of other opponents there who had a lot of ton of experience, and Tom was teaching her how to operate the system, like how to start it, stop it, and even self-save program or even emergency stop. And after a couple of tries, she actually fixed it quite well, and the both film brothers was quite impressed, but especially Flam. He was very impressed of how fast she actually was taught about how to operate things. And even for the past few weeks afterwards, he has started getting some infection. He actually had some feelings for lightning dust. And during one of her lunch breaks, they actually sat down and talked together and just had lunch and just talked about something. And then he actually admitted to her that he actually loved her. And lightning dust was not even prepared for any kind of that, but she actually said that she liked him well. And he asked her out and she said yes. The same evening, they actually went to those restaurants in Las Pegasus. And first, they actually had a great time, but Flame was actually very suspicious about lightning dust. He thought that she was going to only use his brother so that she can gain access to more higher upper opportunities within the resort, that she may get more promotion, more higher paid. But after a while, lightning dust actually proved him very much wrong. In fact, even if lightning dust she wanted to have something a work that even more paid, but she in fact actually enjoyed this part of this to be of one of the managers of the roller coasters, and still she had this 60 bits per hour per day as a payment. Even she has been offered to be raised almost like to 90 to 100 bits, but she declined it to stay at 60. And after 4 years, she actually had moved to Las Vegas with Flam, and they had actually been living together for about 4 years. And one day he actually proposed to her, and she said yes. They had a small wedding in Las Vegas with some of the closest friends and some family members. And they actually spent their honeymoon in Las Vegas for only about 2 weeks before they went back to work. and only that 2 years later they had twin daughters of their own. That's how Lightning Dust and Flam found a true love and got a family. The end.